That's a good thing, right? Welcome back to True Health Live. We are live. We're going to get started because this is also a podcast. The video is just for your convenience and for us to see each other's lovely faces. But welcome to season 2. We are back. I am Deidre Sully, and I'm joined by my three co-hosts, Precious Stephanie.
Hello. So nice to be back.
No, right? And a different time and a different day.
Different day, everything.
Yeah. And Anishka Gopala.
Hi, I'm
Hi.
happy to be here.
Yeah. So we decided, well, I decided and I told them like 5 minutes ago that we're gonna, we're gonna be looking into a lot of different things this coming season. Like we're gonna cover more current events and really, have the content speak more truthfully to the show. This is True Health Live. So our shows are gonna focus on the truth. So today's show is the truth about how we really doing. It's been some time since we've been together, so we need to check in with one another. And one of the things I wanted to kind of talk about, like as far as like how we really doing, is more like how are we really doing in the grand scheme of like what's happening in the world. We've got baby formula shortage. We've got what else, ladies? Shootings, mass shootings. Like this is taking a toll on mental health, on how people move when it comes to feeding their children, a whole lot of things. The education behind, you know, um, formula and versus breastfeeding and what's best. So there are a lot of different things happening now. I just realized like maybe outside was the best because I can't control the car noise, but we're just gonna just move through it. Go
But the
ahead.
scenery is beautiful. And while we don't always appreciate how every day, right, our everyday experiences impact our health, I think, even the war in the Ukraine is something that is happening and that, is a stressor and, is on everyone's mind. So that's just something else that's going on. Oh, and how dare we forget the economy? Yes. So there we have it. There we have it. Any of those things truly impact our health, whether it's
Yeah,
mental or
I'm like,
physical.
aren't they talking about how everything's like in the red and like pointing down, like a downward slope? And it's
Yes. Yes, indeed, indeed.
Absolutely. The mental health, yes. I think with everything happening, all of our mental health and emotional health is just at the prime. Really have to take care of ourselves. And it's hard to stay so positive when you see all this negativity every single day of every single second. And the minute you catch a break, you know, you turn around and something's happening in the next neighborhood. You put on the television or you pick up your phone and you're like, oh my God, like what is going on? It's like humanity is just falling apart, period. And then on top of that, it's the economy. Like nothing is going down, everything is going up. Cost of living is going up. It's survival. There's this heavy tag attached to just surviving everyday life, like for people, for transportation, housing, name it, food. Everything has such a hefty tag price on it, and it just, I know I find myself like, what's happening here? Like, how do they expect people to get through? Like some of us are, you know, privileged and can afford certain things, and when you think about it, if you turn around, the next person may not. And how do you make ends meet when you were already trying to make ends meet before, when it was less, and now it's getting even higher, but the cost of living is higher, and now you're like, now what do I do? Because my pay rate, I'm not getting a pay raise. Pay still the same, the income coming in still the same, but I still got to feed these mouths. I still got to keep the roof over our head, and then on top of that, I got to worry for our safety, because you just never know. You can go on a train. I'm here in New York. You get on the train, that's something to worry about. You don't know if you're safe or not. You can walk outside. You don't know if you're safe or not, because people are just going on scooters and shooting folks up. It's just so many things. And us as an adult, we think that we can navigate a lot better. But it doesn't matter who you are. You could be a child, you could be an adult. The violence has gotten crazy, Crazy, crazy. It's so disheartening.
You know, as you were speaking, you said something that, like, I'm like, oh, that could be, the angle that because, we're always identifying like some key takeaways, right? In these segments, if you go back to season one, there's always like these tools that we wind up offering you all, and ourselves. And so, Anushka, you said it's hard to stay positive when there's so much negativity kind of like swirling around, and you went into enumerating a few things. But there's so much power in being able to maintain a positive perspective, even, and I know we discussed it when we went deeply into COVID talks last season, the idea of how those stressors repress the immune system. And so, I would love for us to, definitely get into all of what's happening, but even to identify, like, how can you flip this, like with food insecurity, the fact that there's this proliferation of home gardens, especially now that, on the East Coast we've got nicer weather, and so there's the opportunity, even if it's within an apartment, to kind of grow a few things on your windowsill, on your ledge, on your, if people still have fire escapes. I know a long
Yeah,
time ago
yeah.
I did. So it's like anywhere, right? I think I had like one once. It was, yes. Always wanted to climb down, but never really an option. But the idea of how you can manage, one, what you're taking in, and two, how you can kind of turn it around, right? Even like do some alchemy, if you will, because really that's like, transforming a thing. So yeah, we're gonna do a little bit of that. I would like us to.
We are, you know what? Because coming up this season, like some of our segments are really going to focus on like food, clothing, shelter, right? So food, definitely nutrition and health. Food insecurity is a thing, right? Shelter, like what's happening since we're what 2.5 years after, COVID, and people are still struggling with housing. They still have housing insecurity. And then, what does that mean for clothing? I actually want to like dive into like how the fashion industry can like affect our public health, and like what we see as fashionable and what we're wearing and how that like affects how we move, right? Then we have our mind, body, soul. So I'm going to be inviting people, experts to talk. We already have like someone coming. She's a yogi, enthusiast from Jersey. She's a yogi enthusiast, and she'll be coming talking about her, work in like comedic yoga. Willingly, fingers crossed, we get our food person, and he's like, known on social media. So willingly, that all works out. But we're gonna have a lot ready for folks, and so like if you catch this segment, after today, totally fine because you didn't miss anything yet. This is just a preview. So yeah, like there has been a lot going on. Like how much did we enumerate already? Food, formula, Ukraine, mass shootings. What else? Stocks. You just heard me just say stocks, and that kind of like just
Right. That levels the whole stress. Yeah, there is so much. And sometimes, we don't even take the time to like, wait, what am I taking in right now? Like what am I navigating through right now? And because, when we think about just food, clothing, shelter, it's like, that's the core hierarchy of needs, right? Like that's down at the bottom. But that's where so many of us are, as Anushka, as you both touched on, um, many don't even have the privilege to think beyond, where is that dollar coming from? How are we going to make this happen? Are my loved ones going to actually be healthy with the, dare I say, is this the second round of boosters? So it's like the booster on top of the booster on top of the original one or two shots. So it's like, there's a lot. There are many questions and not enough answers. But that's a great opportunity for you to identify and source answers for us to identify and source answers for ourselves. Um, Turn off the television a little bit. Keep this podcast on, but turn off the television just a little bit and really like settle into what's truly important for me and my family and my community even. And how do I create more of that?
Yeah.
Let that be the question, you know?
Yeah. Get outside of the city.
I hear crickets, right, as evidenced by your
Right. Get outside.
crickets and trees, right? We're not even sure if that's nature or just like a photo. So don't tell us. Don't tell us. We never know. She could have music and
What is it? The world may never know.
that's right. Right. Until a bug goes flying by,
I
then we'll know for sure.
I agree, Precious. Like, we definitely do have to be mindful of what we take in. Like, we have to know what's for us, what's not for us. We can be aware. Doesn't mean we have to deep dive. Doesn't mean we have to, hold on to that. And sometimes it's easier said than done. Like, I've discovered that I'm more of an empath than I really thought I was. And I'm just like, but I have to be disciplined and know that, I can't take on others' pain or, what they're going through and make it my own. I can always be helpful. I can always be compassionate and try to help, but I have to know what the limits are so I can protect my own mental health and then my emotional health, right? And not take on too much. And yeah, I turn the TV off all the time, and I hate that when I do decide to turn it on, I see something I really don't want to see. I mean, it's great to stay abreast on what's happening in the world, what's happening in our community. But again, it's just so much happening. And I think it's like a pro and a con too. Like, you don't want to you don't want to like put yourself in a box where you don't know what's happening outside, but you also don't want to embrace all that's happening outside as well and make it like your problem, right? And I think being heart centric and having community, a lot of times we don't talk about what's happening, and we do need to talk. We need to talk more, and if we can't save the world, and we know that we're human, we're individuals, but if we work together to protect our village, rather that village be your like nucleus family or your community family, it goes a long way, right? So maybe if someone, like you said, you can plant things outside on the fire escape if you still have it, or your window seal if you still have that too, because a lot of these new buildings don't have window seals. If you don't have it, maybe a neighbor does, right? So work together, work in solidarity, work as a collective. If you still have a community garden, work together on keeping it clean and really pouring into it, because those are even dropping off the map. But in this time, in this day and age that we're living in, we really need to know who we are. We need to know what are the things that make us happy, what makes us stay healthy as individuals, and also with our loved ones, our community, and work towards that, because there's so many negative things coming at us from left to right, up and above. Um, and it's easy to get lost in all that, right? Unless you are setting your intentions and you're being mindful. And some things we can't sway away from, but if you practice on healthy living as a whole on a daily basis,
Yeah.
you can control certain things a little bit better, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know you touched on different options for food, and what came up in my mind are even food co-ops and farmers markets, and how cost effective. I know when I was in New York, especially when I was in Brooklyn, I really enjoyed the food co-ops. There's one in Park Slope and there was one in Flatbush that I absolutely loved. And I think that that's an opportunity as well to get inexpensive, fresh, organic produce without, where you can also cultivate, build community, because in a food co-op you work, right? It's a cooperative. So it's also an opportunity to kind of just breathe a different sort of air among people who also value having cost effective, healthy, nutritious food. So again, that's like how you can, flip it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I leave my hometown. I leave where I live to go to Queens to go to a particular market because it's so cost friendly. If I go to the
Mhm.
supermarket around the corner, I'm paying like $3.99 for cilantro. It's like just a little small bunch. And I go to this market in Queens, everything is fresh, it's organic, and I can buy 3 bunches for like $1.
And then you can grow cilantro, put it in some water,
Right.
get a few roots. Oh, greetings. Let's see, we have Chief
Yes.
Yuya. Greetings.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes. But you can just take one sprig or two. Maybe you want more than one, but just take a few, sit it in a little water, put it in your window, and then you've got your own cilantro in a little while. So yeah.
That I did recently, I found a patch of dirt. You know how sometimes you get the onions and it might be a little soft. You're like, I don't want to use that, and then you just leave it, and then it starts to grow like a little.
Making babies.
I planted it, and it's growing. I planted it.
Resourceful.
I started small, right? So I was like, we're just gonna use you as a bulb, and let's see what you can produce.
Let's see what happens. Yeah.
Let's see what happens. So I'm gonna like post pictures. Like we'll post pictures on the Treehouse Live Instagram, so you can see like the progress of Deidre's onion plant.
Oh my. Oh my. That's gonna be fun. Well, yeah, that's gonna be fun. We can watch it grow and see what you get from that one mushy
Yeah,
onion.
it was just like a little bit on one side. And I was like, I'm not eating this. I was like, let's just see what happens if I put it in the dirt.
Right, right. But these are all examples of like taking what you have that may be undesirable, right? And creating um, something more sustainable, even perhaps. So yeah, we're going to take everything that we're talking about and turn it into something amazing, because we have the possibility, right? We have the option to stay positive or to turn the situation around in spite of what you see on the news. So I think this is a great way for us to open up season 2.
Be fun. So, how are you really doing, ladies? What's been happening? We've been on hiatus for 5 months. No, 6, because we stopped in
November? Was it November?
6 months. So we took like
Yeah.
6 month sabbatical,
Man.
silence as we like gathered our thoughts and got ourselves together and lived, you know, and just kind of breathe, exhale. Because I know, like, while we were filming, like, a lot was happening. Our last show was about the Great Resignation. So we were having, like, career changes. I know my career switched in the middle of all this. It's been, like, nutty. So, like, so what's been happening? I know, like, a lot has happened in the last, like, 6 months for me since we've been away. And I'll share. But enough about me. I'll open up with you, ladies. So what's been happening? Precious, tell us. What have
Oh
you been?
boy, me. Well, I'm still a mommy of 2. I think we closed out with me sharing that I relocated to North Carolina. I, d- I don't believe, I'm not sure where I was as far as the consulting work, but I'm really excited to say that I'm doing some really, really amazing work in the state of North Carolina, on just some uh, implementation of an EHR system. That's been really exciting. I think you all recall that I went from running a hospital to now supporting a statewide EHR implementation. So it's a lot of fun. It's really challenging. Settling into North Carolina has been amazing, especially now that the spring and even, dare I say, summer, it's been like 90 degrees consistently here. Hence the glow. Like, um, yeah, I have to say, since our Great Resignation discussion, I have like, yeah, just wonderful things to share, and I look forward to even touching on more of it as we build through this season. So Anushka, what have you been up to? Because you made a big move right as we closed out the season as well.
Yeah, girl. I hopped on that great resignation train too. I was ecstatic. And I have the same sentiments. I'm happy about that decision. I think it was one of the best decisions I've made. And you know that saying, like, we pray and ask for all for these blessings and we get them, and it's like, wow. So I'm happy and I'm grateful that God blessed me with everything I asked for and then some. But he also, in the midst of that, I got lessons. And so it's like, the grass isn't always green on the other side kind of thing. So I am grateful for everything, but I'm also realizing, is this really what I want? Because we don't really dream about labor, right? Who dreams like I want to work for the rest of my life? When people ask that question, what's your dream job? No job is my dream job. I don't
That's
want
a
to work.
nightmare, right?
I don't want to work for the rest of my life. I want to be with my loved ones. I want to be with my family. I want to travel. I want to live an enriched life, right? And so that doesn't always require me having an employer or even me doing manual labor. What I realized was that I need to automate these skills and these expertise, because I don't want to lose out again on my family and the things that mean the most to me, because even in consulting, I have to produce in order to get income, right? I have to give a piece of myself to get this income. So I'm currently working on just automating things and creating where I can create and set and give it so it can be sustained by the client. And I still get to do what I love, but I don't have to give so much of myself. I don't have to take 10 meetings in 5 hours or whatever, you know what I mean? I don't have to give all of that, and I'm loving the journey, just figuring it out on my time. I get to wake up with ease. I go to sleep a little later, but I'm happy and I'm content. And some days are longer than others, but for the most part, I've found peace in my day to day. I don't have to work around the clock. I don't have to really get those stressors that I once did. I don't have them anymore. And so I'm able to be more productive and produce better than I once did. And then I'm also enjoying the time that I get to just enjoy my space and my family. Like my daughter, you guys know, I think from the last conversations, that she's graduating this year. So she graduated early back in January, but now here's all the celebratory stuff. So prom is coming up, the big graduation. So we're planning trips and all that stuff, but I get to do that. Had I been in the office, I would have to really squeeze in time to, okay, block this, block that, work after work, run to the mall, do all those things. Now I don't have to do that. I get to cook dinner and, or not cook dinner if I don't want to, but it's been amazing. I love it. And I'm just trying to cultivate it where it works even better for me and mine.
Yeah, yeah, that's good to hear. What about the work with the breast cancer work?
Oh, that's amazing. So I went from a program manager to being a director. Now I'm heading a pilot program because I enjoyed part time so much in consulting that I was like, I don't want to go back full time. So I am still they're still my client, and it's amazing. What really drives me there is the patients. Our patients are angel advocates, is what we call them. They're really patient advocates, and their stories and their passion, it's just so amazing and so inspiring. And so we're doing great work nationwide. We have a global impact. We have folks all throughout the US, but also in Canada, Europe, and Africa. And to just listen to these women and all the things that they have done, that they're currently doing, and what they want to do, and being able to support that is amazing. We're going to be in Essence Festival. So that was one of my things that came true. And I was like, yeah, my girls are going. So we're making tons of impact, bringing breast cancer awareness to our communities, especially to our Black and Brown communities, because we are the ones that are heavily impacted, but the ones that are not at the table making these decisions or helping to make these decisions. And so we are really making ways to amplify our voices and tell our stories and make change, especially in the policy arena, as these diseases affect us greatly.
That's awesome, 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 awesome. And Ima, I was about to call you Ima. Ima is Hebrew for mother, but Ima Precious Stephanie. Um, Tell us about EHR, because I meant to say, but I didn't want to interrupt.
Oh, sure.
We talking acronyms. What is that?
Yes, my apologies. Yes, so it is an electronic health record. That's what EHR stands for. And I mean, really simply, when you go to a hospital or you go to your physician, maybe 10, 15 years ago, things were still on paper charts. They pull your chart and it's all this paper, and the doctor has to write with pen, or the nurse. And then things shifted to a more electronic system. And really, it's to support continuity of care, right? So that the flow of treatment is more fluid between one specialty or specialist and another. Um, why everything is so silo is a conversation. Is a conversation we can have another day. But the reality of the allopathic system is that everything is segmented. And so your oncologist may not speak to your general practitioner, may not speak to your gynecologist. And so what an EHR, or an electronic health record, allows to happen is for all of those systems to communicate, or for there to be one record for Precious Stepney. So as long as I'm within one system of care, let's say, NYU system in New York, or Langone, like it travels, and you're you with all of your health information, no matter which practitioner you go to see. There are still many systems, even in New York where I work, there was what we would call a more homegrown or proprietary software used. Oh, it looks like people are flooding in. Yay! Um,
Greetings, top tier. Greetings, Maya. Greetings, Zach Latimer. How are you? How are you?
Yes. And so that is what an EHR is. I'm sure we've all had experience with an EHR system, just by receiving healthcare services. But it's the electronic side of your health footprint, if you will.
Yeah, yeah. I always thought that was like really important when it comes to healthcare. If you're going to move around in a system, like, so like you said, everything follows you. I think sometimes what they call them EMRs, like whatever. It's
Yeah, well, that's electronic medical record. It's the same. It's the same thing. EMR and EHR is pretty much, it just depends on the industry what they call it. Yeah.
It's like the same concept as the Social Security, only this is strictly for your healthcare.
Yeah. It's just right. Wherever you go.
Yeah, it follows wherever you go. Now that the really exciting part, exciting to some, the geeks of that environment, I guess, is the idea of a health exchange. So let's say, I gave the example of, like, if you go to like an NYU or any large healthcare system, right? If you go to any physician affiliated with NYU, you're guaranteed that your health records travel. But let's say that the best specialist is actually connected, and I'm going to use all New York, systems. Let's say it's Northwell. So NYU and Northwell are not necessarily connected, and they don't necessarily have the same EHR or EMR system.
Right.
But there's a federal requirement, actually, that all hospital corporations that have an electronic health record, which they're all required to have by a certain time, that they participate in something called a health exchange network. And what a health exchange network allows to happen is for my hospital company language to talk to your hospital company language, so that it doesn't matter where Anushka may need care, her record is her record and her health footprint is her health footprint. So I say it's exciting because it allows for an improved continuity of care for patients, clients, customers. But then there's also where's all my health information going? So what's happening now? So now everybody everywhere can access it. And there is some information that can be accessed. A lot of it you have to consent for, but there are data breaches, right? And so that's a thing, just like with our credit, or like you said, Anushka, with things like Social Security, there's always the question about security and sustainability. But I can just talk about that forever. So it might be boring to some, so I'll just end it there.
Now, like, well, what happens in that transfer? You said it like the data breach, or like, is there micro data being collected? Like the same way when we're logging into like all these social media, this is like a recap of last season. Like when we're logging in, like everything, like, oh, well, it asks your permission, like, can we track where you are right now? Like, what's your location? Like, I get that question all the time. Like,
Yeah.
all that metadata, that they're meta that they're collecting, on us, right? Yeah.
So there are
Question.
yeah, I see the question.
You
Um,
know what? This is horrible. I'm gonna read this question. Fatima says, "Is this why some people are scared their organs will get taken?" I don't know if you mean like urban legends, organs will get taken, wake
That's
up
right.
of ice, but it is. I think it is it's a reality that people are, because people, if they and this is, if you want to, be a person that donates organ, more power to you. I think that is so, like, selfless and giving. At the same time, I am one of those people that questions, like, will you work hard to save me if you find out that I'm an organ donor and, several of my parts are needed? So for that reason, it's like, when I'm ready to go, like, then there will be like, okay, there will be instructions to donate organs if they are still donatable, but not, beforehand. Not beforehand.
Well, there's another side to that, that's still very real. And it isn't as hypothetical as what you, or something that you may say, oh, I'm just being a little paranoid. There are many, and we discussed this when we spoke about, reproductive health. And there are many, many women who go in for what may seem to be a routine, unfortunately, routine removal of a cyst or removal of a fibroid tumor. And we spoke about that last season, and wind up awake with no uterus at all, or a partial hysterectomy, or you go in for a C-section and come out the same way. And so, yes, there are. And then there are also, there's also the advent of wrong site surgery.
Yes.
And it's not as prevalent because, the Joint Commission, which accredits all hospitals in the United States and beyond. But there are many national patient safety goals that, set, if you've had a procedure in the last, let's say 15, 20 years, that they'll ask you your name, they'll check your name tag, they'll ask you, what are you having surgery on? And is it your right leg? Is it your left leg? They take a Sharpie, they mark it. All of those things are put in place as safety measures, because that didn't always happen. And you would go in for a procedure on or even an amputation of your right leg, and your left leg is the one that's amputated by accident. So these things happen, and then, yes, even worse. Now you got more problems, unfortunately. So there is that, but that's not as much connected to what the health exchange is there to do. And I wanted to answer the question about the idea of metadata. I was going to say data, but it's metadata. What the HealthX has the capability of doing is, yes, there is like what is called declassified data, right? Declassified data? Classified. Yeah, it's pretty much the data that, right, it doesn't identify you, right, at all. But it may tell us, the population that this particular community is serving. It can just give some basic information. But if you consent to one system communicating with the other on your behalf, then yes, that NYU can talk to that, UNC Health, even though they're in two different, states, let's say. It just makes continuity of care much more promising in theory. That's how it's being touted. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think that is true. At the same, I do. I mean, we know this is not a hypothetical. That
Mhm.
that you have a lot of information on
Oh
the internet
yeah,
around.
absolutely.
That's the
We
reality.
already do though. We already do, right? It's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's
They
true.
they know right. Yeah. So how are we doing? Maybe stressed and paranoid. Maybe that's how we're doing. How we doing? In the chat, share today's show. We're talking about how we're really doing, the truth about how we're really doing. So
Yeah.
so far our hosts have been like really good. Things have been moving. Same here. Like I have not necessarily joined the Great Resignation yet, but that probably will change. We'll see in a couple shows. But I have had like the opportunity to build my own personal brand and do like small pieces of consulting, and that, like you said, and it's been so like rewarding, and it's like, yeah, I could do this, I can market myself, and have to do like a little bit better at it, but like you have to start somewhere, right? And I think like just getting started, there's been also like a lot of transition, some of it not so great, but some of it great, like, but that's the definition of transition. Like things are going to happen, like good and bad. They're kind of like one door is closing and another one is opening, and you kind of just move on through, you move with it. Some of it is taxing to your mental health. I did have one of my parents transition, and it was a very eye-opening experience, right? It's not something, of course, like we're only gonna, we are fortunate enough to know our parents and have that relationship where you go to their service and you see them transition and you send them off. Um, you're only going to have that twice, right? For most of us, you're only going to have it twice. And then the first time it happens, it's really traumatic. And we all have different experiences. And one thing that I noticed was just the phase of transition. My parent transitioned, but so many other things, positive things, did start happening at the very same. And I'm talking about like within the same, week, or things have changed. So I had to really kind of step back and try to see like what the positive points were. Is it still really sucky? Absolutely. It's not something that you just like kind of get over. At the same time, life is still happening, and I have a community around me, like surrounded, that loves me, and I love them. So we're good. We're all gravy. Like we're moving through all the feels, right? So yeah, I think it's good.
You just like brought us full circle, right? Because we opened with what's happening in the world and we went through all of the atrocities and the financial, plummets and the war and the shootings. But then we started talking about how we can still maintain balance and a positive perspective, a positive reality for ourselves, and how that is actually alchemy, right? And a lot of people wouldn't look at the bereavement process or the experience of losing a parent as, wow, okay, there's all of these feelings that go in, that are just connected to that sort of loss. But then there were other things that came out of it. So I commend you for acknowledging that there are other things that come out of that, because it's another step, another transition, if you will, on both sides,
Yeah,
Yeah. And it's a
yeah,
good reminder for us who haven't had that experience just yet as well.
yeah. You really, well, I should, I'll make I statements. And I'm still having to do this, like really meditate, right? And I had to be forced to do this because I wasn't necessarily doing it. And so when you kind of make that space to do that and kind of sit in silence, like before you start anything, because I used to like start my day like most people, like grab the phone, what's first, and now it's like, nope, I'm reading scripture. I'm saying affirmations and, talking about it with my creator and like, all right, this is how I'm feeling today. This is what it is. And I need to, guide you. I need your help, guide me through it. So it's been a process, and I'm still, like I said, I'm still moving through it. And yes, it is like a, you begin, you do begin to appreciate like what is still there. Yes, you miss things, and there's things that you'll never get again. But I have been forced to appreciate those who are around me, and because I haven't been doing it, and I'm still not doing it with a lot of people. And so, like, it's forcing you to like come out of like the self-centered circle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look at that though. Like the passing of a parent actually giving you, like, it's like a rebirth for you, because now you have changed in so many ways.
I'm still going, and
Yeah, you
I'm still in a chrysalis. So
But
like,
there's something happening in that
it's something,
chrysalis.
it's something happening, and it's
Yeah.
really making you look within and slowing you down so you can be conscious of it, right? So I think it's beautiful. And yeah, kudos to you for like taking the time and allowing yourself and giving yourself permission to just feel, right? A lot of times we get, either we're so happy and you get caught up in the excitement, or you're so sad and you get caught up with that. And you don't acknowledge the fact, like, let me just take my time and feel. Let me pause to just feel. So it's good that you're doing that.
and I had to be forced. I had to be told, because it wasn't. So
A little push never hurt anybody.
right. I'm very
Right.
you
Right.
know,
Or direct instruction. Right? Like,
I
yeah,
mean,
I
sometimes
will.
we need that. We could be stubborn, right? And you
Yeah.
just need to listen. Like, all right, fine,
Yeah.
I'm gonna listen.
And I see your question,
yeah, it's okay.
Zach Latimer.
That's
Yeah.
how we're doing. So let's
Yeah.
end.
So
So,
no problem.
will the
Yeah.
EMR system, with the EMR system, could someone's health record be held against them like a credit score? Sorry if I don't think that's off topic.
It's not at all off topic. It already is. I saw the question while Deidre was speaking, and um, right. So let's think about why Obamacare, as it was originally, kind of named, why it was implemented. It was implemented for those who had health conditions that were otherwise uninsurable, to ensure that they had coverage. So, depending on your age, your health, your financial circumstances, you could possibly always be discriminated against, for health insurance, for life insurance. And so I would say yes, but I would also say that that has always existed. Um, could it exist more? Yes, because now instead of your information being siloed in one system of care, right, where it's locked up, and the only way for, let's say, a life insurance company, ABC, to get access to, well, how is your health? They would have to do blood work and send you for testing and get whatever answer they got. But that's not as comprehensive as, oh, we can now link up with this health exchange system and gain, except as of right now, they could not, because it's just for healthcare, like hospital corporations. But let's just say it's opened up. Um, they would be able to access that information. But what would that mean? In order to avoid a lot of the what ifs that we're talking about, it means that you go to a relatively, if you're going to go to a physician, you're going to go to a relatively antiquated healthcare practice where they still use paper, if that's what you want. But again, there's also the option of, something, and I'm just going to keep plugging season one, how your diet, how your lifestyle, how your fitness. Like, I know many of us get up every day, 6 days, well, 5, 6 days is strong, and work out. And it's fun, but it's also, so that, as the bones just don't creaking till they crack. You have to, like, care for your machine. You like that one? Creak till it cracks. um you have to take care of the machine that is your body, so that maybe you don't need to go run into the position as much. Again, when you have community and family, maybe they're healthcare practitioners and everything is outside of that network. So willfully that answers the question, because I'm sure many people are maybe hearing about the health exchange networks for the first time today. Look it up. It's definitely a thing that's happening, and it's being pushed by Medicaid, by the federal government. Yep.
You know what? This is related, but not related. But when you talked about like the paper places still having paper, those places exist now.
Oh yeah.
This story, I was not at a healthcare facility. I was actually renting a car, but they had the printer. I don't even know what was on their computer screens. You know the kind of printer that has the yes, yes. Then you have to tear it off. It has the whole, yes, that Anushka.
With the perforated edges. I didn't even know what that's called anyway.
Oh wow.
Carbon copy, the
Yes.
triplicate. And then
Yes.
you buy the big thing and it kind of runs through the printer.
Yes.
Comes out, you can barely read the words that were on it. Yeah. That's
Wow.
So then the question is that the sort of, health practitioner that you want? Because, there's a certain amount of credits, they're called CMEs, but it's like there's a certain amount of medical education credits that a physician should have. That usually means you're keeping up with technology in some way. But if you're still working that paper record,
it's like,
Yeah.
no. Because then when you go for a lab, what happens? Like the labs don't send like x-rays. Like, you used to have to walk with these big old actual x-rays. Now everything is digital. So it's like, how does that work? How does that
Like a
work?
gift and a curse in a way. I just went to the doctors out of state, and great doctor, great office. She's up on technology, but she doesn't believe in EMRs. So or no patient portals. And I was like, oh, you don't have patient portals? And she was like, no. And I'm like, I live in New York. She's all the way in Georgia. And I said, oh, so how do I get my records? You're gonna just mail them to me? And she said, yeah, I'll just send them through the mail and whatnot. And I was like, okay, I understand. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's a gift and a curse. I love the convenience of having, medical organizations, hospitals, they talking to one another. It's very, like you said, the continuity of care. But then it's also that other lingering question, like, this is a lot of information about me that the world can possibly, anybody can get their hands on, But then it brings us back to HIPAA and what we sign off at, at our home practices, like all those documentations. And it kind of can get discouraging for patients because you're going there for a purpose, right? Either if it's your annual, it's your annual. But if you have a sickness and you're going in for your sickness, you don't want to have to go through that thick, rather if it's a paper, the thick packets they give you, or even if it's just digital, all that scrolling and signing, it's kind of discouraging, and people tend to just skip the reading and sign, like, oh, they're just saying that, I'm just going to sign, right? So I think something has to change with that, because a lot of times people just want to get through the paperwork, rather it be hard copies or digital, and you're just signing away, not knowing what you're signing to. And so that other piece of the pie, this, you're saying, well, all of this information is there. Well, you signed off on it, so anybody can grab it. You have to be very diligent and very mindful of what you're signing when it comes to your healthcare. And like I said, there has to be a better way to do that. It just has to be. And I'm the kind of person, while I'm doing something and I see it's like tedious, I'm like, it has to be an easier way. With all this technology in this day and age that we have to figure something else out. And my mind starts working, well, what can I do to get to the same result without having to do all these steps? And if I can do it, doesn't mean the next person can, especially our elders.
Mhm.
They can't, like, they don't have, either they don't have the ability, they don't have the time, they don't have the patience, and that, and that's reasonable, right? Or people with language barriers, or who are new to the country or new to the systems. Like, there's so many things to think about. So like I said, I feel it's a yes, a pro and a con, a gift and a curse. But there's definitely room for improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. Balance and education in everything. Um, I'll say this because you touched on a lot. First, the patient portal. That's something that's very different, right? So that is specific to ensuring that patients can access their information. Patient portals have to be like they're funded differently, and especially if it's a private practice, you've got to pay for that. So it's not that she doesn't believe in it. She
Her words,
probably
not
just
mine.
doesn't. Yeah, but I'm saying it's probably more like the cost isn't worth it when I can mail you, make you wait, not give you instant access and mail you your records upon request. So that could be more of a cost savings initiative because what is it to actually believe or not believe in, particularly if you are using an electronic health record? I'm just saying. So that is just something to think about. I'm like, oh yeah, there's a cost associated with that. Um, the other thing is the idea of signing away. So earlier when I touched on, going in for one sort of procedure, all right, I don't usually do like story time. DJ's like, oh, it's coming. So I'll share a story. My friends were always a lot older than I, even in high school. And so when I was in my like early 20s, one of my really close friends was having a child. And it was my first godchild, right? I don't know why she picked me. I didn't have no children. I was like 22. But somehow I wound up being in the delivery room. Dad was unavailable. And so there I was in the delivery room assisting with birth, right? I think that's probably why I waited until my mid 30s to have children. I was like, no way. But during that process, I guess I was always just into like paper. Um, you know, I read all of the paperwork, particularly when they made the decision to tell her that she was not dilating fast enough and that they would need to induce or possibly proceed with C-section. I read every line of everything that was given to my friend at that time. And what I realized was that what she was being asked to sign, which I wound up using to motivate her to push, right? Because she was like, you tighten up and things slow down. It essentially said that, yeah, well, we'll use Pitocin, we'll use whatever to induce, but if it proceeds to a C-section, if it proceeds and we have to do a C-section, then we will. If there are any health implications and we have to go in and mitigate, we'll like essentially once we cut you open, we do whatever we want. And when I read that, I was just like, oh my gosh, how often do we read those things? We so many times, I mean, Deidre, I think of your share last season where it was like you were just told you had to have like a follow-up test and you were falling to pieces and couldn't even remember what the practitioner was telling you to do to prep for the test. That's more common than not. And then when you add on not just language barriers or age, but what if just there are literacy challenges? What if there are no literacy challenges, but you don't understand medical terminology? There's so many nuances to us saying, well, yeah, be informed. And I see you, Anishka. Go hop right in. Go ahead. I saw you.
Really quickly, that literacy piece. Oh, went to a specialist with my partner, and there was a man, an elder man. You could tell he wasn't, he wasn't native to America. We went in before him. The paperwork took us 30 minutes, and I can only imagine how longer he was sitting there prior to us getting in there. We finished our paperwork and was waiting, and I'm like to my partner, I'm like, I don't think he can read. And if I noticed, I'm sure, like, the staff had
Right.
to have noticed because the lady kept brushing him. But that just goes to show, like, the literacy piece, too. Like, some people cannot read, cannot write, especially, like, a lot of foreigners are like that, like people from the Caribbean. I know I have aunts and uncles, and, friends of our family that couldn't. And I just kind of noticed, and I was like, I want to go help him, but what if I don't speak the language? Now I went to help, and then it caused another problem. And I said, you know what? My heart was just saying, just do it. You have nothing to lose, right? But he has something to gain. You can help him. And I went and I asked, and thankfully he spoke English. It's just that he could not read it. And so, yeah, that's a big one too. And a lot of times people aren't thinking about it.
It's really common, and it's so common that and I saw the question. I'm gonna answer Zach's question. I'm sorry, but yes, it's a really common thing, and this is quick. I remember when at a different hospital, when I did more quality management, one of the things that I oversaw was like employee training. And I remember my CEO at the time saying, I need you to talk to our housekeeper on the floor that we were on.
Yeah.
And she was this wonderful, wonderful older Southern woman. She was so sweet. Okay. And I'm like, well, why do I need to talk to her? And he's like, just you'll find out. But it was about doing the trainings, which were all on paper. And so because we had this rapport, she kind of just said, well, I don't really do those. And what I discovered was that she didn't do them because she didn't know how to read. And so, yeah, if there's a language barrier, you like, oh, okay. Oh, if they're foreign born, it's like, oh, okay. But there are just so many who just need support and need it to come in a really compassionate way. So that's that. With Zach Latimer's question, could someone's health record be held? Oh no, wait, that's the wrong question. There we go. Let me look over there. Yes. Wouldn't that be easy? Yeah. So it would be. Yeah. I mean, yes, it would be easier to steal someone's information. I think as easy as it is right now to hack our credit card information, right? I think like everything is already there.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about, those digital push pin like entry to your home, it's kind of like we're comforted by these things, but is it not easier to get in? Like, is it not easier to short circuit or hack if then that's what you want to do?
Right.
But absolutely, it would be easier to, once things are digital, it's always the footprint, the thread is always there. But that's why we have to be, use discernment and not opt to have everything disclosed and be more healthy and eat right and have family and, let those healthy women make those meals and, exercise and do all of that cool, dope stuff. And then maybe you worry a little bit less about
do all the things.
I think
It's
as easy as it is now. Like, the stores that we shop at get hacked all the time. And the truth, and even our email, wahoo, and Google's and all those different networks, they get hacked all the time. And the banks, right? I remember one of the financial institutions that I used was hacked. They didn't say anything until maybe a year or two after, and I don't know why they waited. I think legally they can, like, until they do their investigation or whatever. But like institutions, whether it's consumering for consumerism, just us buying things or financials, they get hacked all the time. So
it's crazy. In the past 3 days, 3 relatives got hacked. My nephew did today. Someone did a wire transfer from his bank account to theirs for $10,000. I was like, wait, what?
My whole dropped.
My mother-in-law, someone put something on hers to do monthly withdrawals. And then my brother-in-law, someone did gift cards. All in 3 days. All different people. Different states. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. They're getting wittier and more creative on how to get people.
Well, it's like a paycheck now, right? It's like I'll just do deductions. I'll do deductions off of your off of your income.
Right.
So you
Right.
get a
Oh,
deposit, I'm gonna
we
get
I
a
get a
check.
deposit. Right. And they start off with
we
the
got
That's
little
a
increments.
shame.
They start off with little increments just to see if you even notice. And if
Yep.
you don't notice, guess what? They're gonna keep going.
Yep.
yeah. It
Yeah.
started.
There's more questions.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll take the last few because we're gonna get off soon.
Yes. Yeah,
Um,
it's true. Yeah. What a queer Bisa says. Yep.
there
Hmm.
been yeah. There have.
Absolutely. And yes,
Oh,
definitely forgetting meds. So right, that's a really good point.
yeah.
Because of the opioid epidemic, right, which whew, that's a whole show. Um, man, that I won't even get into where that's well. I will. I'm going to touch on it. Um, pain
I
management became a huge priority for the Joint Commission, which I shared earlier accredits hospital systems. So people's pain weren't being managed appropriately, and so there were all of these protocols put in place to ensure that you were not in excruciating pain unnecessarily. And so, with that came the advent of the opioid epidemic. So, after the opioid epidemic, and everybody wanted the Percocets and the codeine because now our pain is overly managed and we're addicted, um, there was a lockdown.
right.
And what that meant is that you could no longer just go pill shopping
Hmm.
because there was a time when in order to actually receive appropriate funding, I couldn't go to a hospital or my practitioner and say, I have pain in my back. I have
Mm-hmm.
sciatica. I had a car accident and no, the Tylenol, isn't helping. And as soon as you say certain terms or certain words, chronic pain, they have to give it to you. What wound up happening is a few years ago, there was a change in the federal regulations, and the all opioids are now like anyone who receives opioids are in like a national database.
Mm.
So you can't go from Dr. Deidre to Dr. Anushka in one strong or 1 week and say, I got the same pain and get 60
So,
days because I got 30 from you and 30 from you. So what Zach Latimer's question, that's what it's connected to. And that's a really good point. Um, I guess when there's a will, there's a way. You could
Yeah.
always do that, right? Like so I would say yes, but I think that can be done even now, right? I would have to assume someone else's identity, right? Just get somebody else's health insurance card or make one up and get ID.
Right. And I don't necessarily have to start with like an EMR. Like people,
Right? No, it wouldn't.
and
Right.
we also know, just like even with the opioid epidemic, there were a lot of grandparents whose cabinets, medicine cabinets, were
mhm.
Oh, please. So many rated. Yeah, that's the but think about why it was rated because they were receiving these pain pills unnecessarily as well. And it
like
was just like, I don't need all these drugs.
I remember like so my dad, he was diagnosed with multiple myeloma like over 10 years ago, and after he had what they like a bone marrow transplant, what they call autologous. And so they basically harvest your own stem cells, and so you literally have like no immune system, and you're basically starting from scratch. And
Mhm,
but like there's still going to be pain, and there's neuropathy and things like that because
mhm,
of damage. um and I remember him saying, like, the doctor gave him Percocet. And it was, but he's like, but I don't need that many. And it was like, when he told me, like, how much it was, I was like, they were like, it was
yeah,
all, it was insane. It was
yeah,
just insane. It was like, why did they give you that much? He's like, I don't know. I'm not even using it. So I'm positive that they expired. I was like, well, just make sure you don't flush it. They tell you do not
right.
do not flush any like expired meds because it ends up right back in the water system. But I don't know what he did with them, but I'm pretty sure that they expired because he's like, I don't need all of this. Like, I can't
Yeah,
use like it's not necessarily. So we do know like some physicians because I want to be careful of blaming it on physicians, because a lot of that happened. It's like it's the physician's fault. And I think while there are some bad apples, it's I don't know that it's appropriate to like blame the entire, group of, physicians, even though we do know some people were just really careless with their script books, and just writing off prescription.
Yeah. Well, that's why they're digital. You really won't receive a handwritten script anymore. That's a part of why scripts went digital, so
Yeah.
that it can be managed, right? Because at one point you could steal a script book and then just go figure it
Right.
out for yourself. But a lot of the physician, yeah, there was some who were just writing those narcotic scripts, but then there were others that were really doing what they thought was the best for the patient and compliance with the regulations, which said if I know that a procedure like what you described your father is having is going to come with 10 days of pain between an 8 and a 10, I'm going to give you 20 days worth of, and of course it could be 50 days or whatever, but I'm going to try to be proactive. But in that proactivity, many people became addicted, and that's just an unfortunate byproduct of
Yeah.
over empowering pain management. And so now there are now what's in the regulation is the requirement for alternative modes of pain management to be identified and offered first.
Right.
So for all of those practitioners who, do the acupuncture, acupressure, it's a great time to be in pain management.
Yeah. And this opioid epidemic, it did put a lot of people in a bind. There are the people who are actually in excruciating chronic pain all the time.
Yeah.
And unless you know what that's like, it's just like I don't know what that's like. I don't even like, I flinch at like, it's gonna be painful. Like, I'm bees, and anything with a stinger comes around, I'm like, oh my God, because I don't even want to like feel the pain. And maybe that's like a sign of something else. But like there are people who live in excruciating pain, and so like they actually, I think, suffered from some of the regulations, just because of, like, again, like the bad apples on both sides, like people like working the system on both sides. So yeah, but this was good. This was good.
Yay, we're back.
I feel like a lot. We're doing a lot. We're feeling a lot. We're going to be doing a lot. So like, thank you everyone for joining. There's going to be much more for those of you who missed it in the beginning. Be sure to share this video and share the podcast once it's uploaded with all your friends. This is on Facebook and YouTube. We're going to be coming up this season. It's going to be a quick and powerful season. We've got like people lining up to be interviewed. We're going to have a focus on mind, body, soul, food, clothing, shelter. It's going to be fun. So you'll see like different variations of the host, and we'll be in and out and just having fun all throughout. We got time. I don't know. So, anyways, thank you so much for joining us. Give thanks, Anissa and Precious. It was so nice to see you again in this setting, and I'm so excited to see what the season brings.
Thank you for having us. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Peace.